You're listening to Legally Blissed Conversations. This podcast reclaims and rewrites the stories female attorneys have been told about how we should practice law, grow our businesses, treat our clients, treat ourselves, and craft our identities as female attorneys. We'll hear inspiring stories from current and former female attorneys, the ones who question the stories they've been told, the ones who aren't afraid to live boldly and step into their own power. We'll learn from women who define success on their terms. Through lighthearted and curious conversation, we'll unpack the challenges these inspiring female attorneys have already navigated. So join me on this journey. You'll be empowered and ready to rewrite a completely new story about what is possible for you. Well, hey there, and welcome to Legally Blissed Conversations, and a warm welcome today to my friend Lucy Bassli. Lucy is an attorney, author of CLM Simplified and the Simple Guide to Legal Innovation, and founder and principal of InnoLaw Group. Previously, Lucy was a former assistant general counsel of legal operations and contracting at Microsoft. While at Microsoft, she redefined how legal work is done and crafted one of the first managed service engagements with a law firm. She was tapped to teach the legal operations course for Suffolk University Law School's Legal Innovation and Technology Certification Program. Lucy has a partnership with Dentons, the world's largest law firm, to deliver operations consulting to corporate legal departments. Lucy is a highly sought-after legal industry expert who works with corporate legal departments and law firms on legal services and the delivery automation, smart risk-taking, and alternative resourcing models. She educates and consults with lawyers to take best practices in the legal industry to a new level. She is also a strategy advisor for LawGeex, an AI legal startup that automates contract review services. What a resume. Thank you so much for being here, Lucy. I'm so happy to get to learn more about your journey and how this incredible resume came to be. So let's go back just a few years. Why did you go to law school? Why did you decide you wanted to be a lawyer?
Well, yeah, just a few years. Thank you for that. If you ask my kids, we're going back to the Ice Age.
Just a couple of years, right?
Yeah, just a few. I was a child genius, of course. Yeah, it's kind of that age-old story. I've always wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little kid. When I was 4, I think my grandma labeled me as the advocate, and I think it kind of stuck. So it really was just kind of I don't know, it was set in stone. I don't come from a family of lawyers. I am not in a long line of lawyers. There's no family law firm to pass on to me. It really was just kind of a natural, instinctive skill set, I think. Of course, it is nothing like what we thought it was when I was 4 or when I thought it was, or even when I was in college. We all know that. But I think that theory of, boy, you really love to make a point and then stick to your point and then win an argument is really what sealed that deal. So I kind of always had this plan.
I love that you were known as the advocate, right? Because I mean, I think that's really cool. A lot of people say, well, I was argumentative, or but being an advocate, I think that's a really cool spin on it. So you went to law school. Did you come out of law school knowing what you wanted to do in terms of practicing law?
Well, let me give you a really long-winded answer to that, because I think some of our listeners might resonate with them.
Sure.
So as I mentioned, I don't have any lawyers in the family. I had no idea what law school was going to be about. I can't overemphasize how I really thought law school was like I finished college. I'm like, great, I am now going to do the next phase, and that is called law school. I thought it was going to be the same, meaning I would take classes, I would get a score, a GPA, a grade. Yeah. At some point I would finish, and then I would send my resume out and I would look for a job, because now I had added certificate, added little line item on my education. Nothing about that was accurate. Nothing about that. So I was completely shocked when I
Yeah.
started law school.
Mm.
A couple of things and a couple of like ahas that if anybody can relate to this, or if we have any law students listening, here's the thing: law school can be what I described. It can be. You kind of go along your merry way, you make your grades, and then you kind of see what happens. Or you can discover what I discovered, which is, of course, this world of big firm life, recruiting, on-campus recruiting. It is a whole other world. I didn't know.
Right.
It kind of happened to me. So I was invited, and here's how it started. And I love this story because I really feel like this should be like a movie scene where, we're going to do like picture it. I get a little card in the mail. I'm invited to an open house at law firm, Orange Tomatoes and Potatoes, LLP.
Right.
I didn't know this firm. I didn't know nothing. Like, I'm telling you, I have no background here. This is the fall, I think, of my first year where you're like, whoa, people are really studying. I really got to read a lot. Like, it was shocking because I was always a really easy, good student. Like, it just kind of came easy. So I was already in this. Right? Yeah, it's a shocker. You kind of get in going, oh, okay, this is different. So I get this little card. I'll try to make it short because I do love the story. This was the aha moment.
Yeah.
Get this card. I'm like, oh, okay, open house. Well, I don't know what that means. It's a law firm. Sounds like, okay, I'm always like opportunistic. And I say that word really, I hope in a positive way, though I've heard it used different ways. But I'm like, oh, I don't know. I should get to know what this is. I mean, eventually I'm going to need a job. That's all. I've got immigrant. I am an immigrant, and we're like, get the job, you work hard, you get a job. That's what life's about. So, okay, I'm going to go to this thing. It's at night. It's in downtown where I was in Houston. I was at the University of Houston Law Center. And I was like, oh, Houston downtown after dark. So my husband drove me in our teeny tiny little jalopy beat up car. And he's like, okay, I want to drop you off here. And I'm going to like circle around. I was like, okay, try not to get shot. I should be out in like an hour. We didn't have cell phones then. And so I go in the middle of downtown Houston, go up some super tall building. I was like, look at this. This is fancy. I put on my best like matching top and skirt, and then something started to happen, right? So I get up in the elevator, the doors open, and bing, you're like scene one.
Yeah.
and I come out, and there are all these other clearly law students, and they are dressed in a uniform. I'm like, oh, suits. Here, I should
get the memo on that.
And somebody's approaching me with a tray of like snacks or drinks, I don't remember what, and I'm ready for them to offer for me to help them like take the tray and go share appetizers. I'm like, oh, I can have one of these? Well, okay, don't mind if I do. And from there started this parallel world, like an out-of-body experience. I'm watching myself where they like these partners come out. They usher us gently into a conference room, and in this conference room for the next hour proceeds this orchestrated slow dance where they're moving us around the table in casual chit chats with carefully placed partners and practicing law firm lawyers, and they're kind of all testing us out, and then we're kind of ushered out through this assembly line, and my evening ends. Come downstairs. I get in the car, my husband in a little tiny beat up college car, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what just happened there, but now I think I know what an open house means.
Right.
And that's the beginning. That was the beginning of what I realized is now like happening. And then the whole after first year, what are you doing? And you're going to intern, you got to intern. Nobody's going to pay you first year. Oh, somebody got a job after their first year. And then the fall and the on-campus interviewing and the recruiting. And then got the two, split my summer, squeezed out every second I could. I think I even missed some school because I was like, oh, no, I'm going to do as much as I can because they are paying like crazy. This was circa, 1999. So it wasn't anything I expected. And I think that's one big thing that a lot of law students you just don't know or until if you don't have lawyers in the family. So anyway, it's my favorite story. And I'm like, I need to write a movie scene on this one day, a movie short that will win 0 awards and have 1.5 users, but my parents will enjoy it.
They will love it. It'll get like 3 tomatoes or whatever it is.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. So I did jump ahead because I was like, okay, let's go past law school and talk about career, right? But you wanted to go back a little bit to law school. And I think that's really insightful and interesting because I think that a lot of times we do gloss I tend to gloss over like the law school experience. It is interesting because the people that I talk to do have so many different types of experiences in law school. Some people are just like, I love law school. It was my jam. And some people are like, oh my God, it was the 3 years of hell. I had to get out. So what was it? I want to go back into law school a little bit with you.
Yeah,
What was that? I mean, you were likely a good student. I mean, if you're getting invited to the big firm open houses, you were probably doing pretty well, right?
I
Or
mean, it's like anything else. If you make some number or reach some score, you're invited. It's absolutely no indication of aptitude. I'm sorry. It just isn't. I'm grateful. I'm lucky, whatever you want to call it. I'm pretty smart and pretty good at now. I know what I do, but that stuff is a little, it's a little silly. I just don't know if it's a real indicator of anything, to be
sure.
honest. But I will say, I would summarize law school, like if I had to pick which bucket I would be in, to me, it wasn't about I love law school. It was like a means to an end. I got to get through this because I got to get there. I'm driven, I'm motivated, I need a job, I need a good job, I want to enjoy my job. So law school was a means to an end, and it was just like a step I needed to get through. And I went about it very pragmatically, doing what I need to get into whatever little box or number I need to get to so I could take that next step. And when I could take my foot off the gas, boy, I sure did. Third year, easy peasy. I had a job. I had my job set, and I really did not overwork third year at all. So it's very, very pragmatic approach, I would say.
Did you have a favorite class in law school?
Um, I don't know if I had a favorite class. I had a favorite, you probably had some favorite professors. You're like, oh, I enjoyed that. That person made it interesting. I didn't nerd out on any of the topics more than anything else. I turned into a commercial contracts lawyer. So yes, I'm a contracts nerd. I don't think law school has very little relation to what you do in your real job. So nope, it's kind of more about the professors than the classes. I will say I shied away from anything that had its own code. And again, that's my pragmatic side. It's like, why learn another whole chunk of laws? I'm fine with common law. Tax code, no thanks. Trust, no thanks. Trust in the state. Like I was always like, I'm good with that. But a bankruptcy code, ended up practicing bankruptcy straight out of law school. Who knew? So bit of a crapshoot, a little bit of luck,
Right?
hard work.
I think going to law school, like it's really hard for many young lawyers to go to law school and start law school saying, I know I want to do family law, or I know I want to do contracts law, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it can be a little bit of a crapshoot because if you are looking for a job after law school and the industry is hard for most people to get a job after law school out. And sometimes you take what you get and you might end up doing trusts and estates when you had been planning intellectual property.
Absolutely. And that's what happened to me. I ended up doing something by sheer virtue of life and twists and turns and moving across the country and not joining. I had an offer at Baker McKenzie, pretty good little firm. Couldn't move to Seattle, the one place in the country that they didn't have an office. And I was like, oh snap, what have we done? I moved for my husband's job. So really completely life takes you on different paths. Doesn't matter what I did or what I had accomplished in law school at all of that fell apart. And I was like, well, I've got that JD, that's all I got. I'm starting from scratch. So life takes you, and you better be ready to roll with the punches, no matter what. There was something else you said that's interesting about, going into law school, you think you know what you want, but then you kind of get in there and realize what you want. I will say the one big dividing line is really kind of, are you going to be in the litigating world or not? And that could be litigating in an administrative hearings and courts. I mean, it isn't about, big law objections sustained and Ellie McBeal or whatever, but even though you think that's what it is, but in general, you kind of end up in am I doing, live arguments and motions and filings and pleadings in front of a decider or arbitrator of law of some flavor, or am I doing something transactional, right? Something, I don't want to say even corporate, but it feels like those end up being kind of the only real line you can draw. I think people flip-flop in their careers, we know as well.
Yeah, they do flip-flop, and it's totally okay to flip-flop. And it's totally okay to pick a lane and say, I don't want to do litigation or I don't want to do contract work. I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah. So it's all okay. You gotta pay your bills and enjoy your day job and not want to jump off a building. That's a win.
That is, you know what? If you get through the day and you've not done that, it's a win. So, okay. So let's go back to getting out of law school. So and let me help me with the timeline a little bit here.
Yeah.
You and your husband moved to Seattle after law school, and there was no,
here's another funny movie scene. So I'm taking the bar exam. And my husband and I graduated in the same weekend. He got his computer science degree, and I got his bachelor of computer science. Where I was like, you're BS in computer science. While here I am killing myself for the JD in law school. Graduate the same weekend. He gets an email from a little company called Microsoft, and he's like, "We're looking for testers. Yeah, computer science, circa May of 2000." I'm like, oh, little tech bubble going on. So he's like, "Look, this is interesting." I'm like, yeah, pursue that. Studying for the bar. Literally sitting at my kitchen table with my study buddy, and we're like, snacks, bar, food, we're doing this. He's like, "So I'm gonna send my resume." I'm like, "Yeah, you do that." I think they're gonna fly me out there. I'm like, you, whatever. Yeah, sure. Good luck with that. They fly him out. He comes back. He's like, "Well, that was pretty exciting." I'm like, "Yeah, good. Again, I mean, it was really like, again, parallel world. I'm out of body experience. So I got this offer. Like, oh, Microsoft. I have heard of that. We have heard of Microsoft." And of course, every show on TV, every Dateline, Nightline, everything's about .com techie billionaires, blah blah. And we're like, what's happening? Why aren't we there? And
this was 99, about 99.
This is now 2000. So we graduated in May, June of 2000.
Okay.
July 31st of 2000, I finished my law school exam. July 30th on a Thursday, 5 p.m. July 31st was a Friday. We were on the one-way ticket to Seattle. He accepted an offer at Microsoft. And together we're like, yeah, you can't say no to Microsoft. Yeah, I've got Baker McKenzie. That's my Microsoft. But there are probably other Baker McKenzies. There weren't at the time any Microsofts in 2000. So I find myself in Seattle going, law school, what's it called? Loans. Those are real. That job at Baker McKenzie, I got to call and go, here's the thing. I'm in Seattle. And there I was starting over. So yeah, we came here for my husband's Microsoft job. Even funnier story to all the ladies out there watching. My husband ended up being a stay-home dad. Left Microsoft. I joined Microsoft, and then Microsoft kept us here for the next chunk of our lives. So life has a way of like,
can throw some curveballs. That is for sure.
Good ones. Yeah, good ones. I mean, I'm super grateful for every twist and turn. It's just nothing I would have predicted.
Okay,
ever.
so there's a lot here that has gone that is between you kind of having to say no to Baker McKenzie, you all flying up to Seattle, which there are worse places in the world one could live, and him starting at Microsoft and you being like, oh crap, like I'm gonna have to kind of figure this out. Yeah, and you can obviously, and you did, but you have law school loans, right? So what happened next?
Okay, so favorite breakdown story. I was at Safeway and grocery store. Yep, little grocery store. So my husband's put on his grown-up pants, and he's like going to his first real job, and I'm like, hey, I want to do that. We were going to do my career, and I was the big fancy lawyer. But instead, here I am, going to the grocery store every other day because I need something to do. Because for the first few weeks, you're kind of decompressing, and you've got the whole, I just finished the bar, and I should just take a little bar relaxation detox. And then the gal at the checkout's like, oh, you're here again. I thought we just saw you. You're in here quite a bit. Right, I broke down. I'm now famous for shopping because I create little reasons to go to the grocery store, to get out of the house, to do something besides, walk the dog, which is nice. And like, okay, there's only so much and I'm a, hyperactive type A, like I gotta be doing things.
You
gotta be productive.
You need to be producing, creating.
I gotta be developing. Yes. So that was a breakdown. So really what all happened was I became, it was a full-time job, looking for a job. And I will say the one and only real reason that I ended up landing a job was thanks to my mentor at Baker and McKenzie. So Melinda Phelan, if she's watching this, I will send her this link. She was my mentor. She was a couple of years ahead of me at Baker McKenzie. And I said, Melinda, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah, yeah,
And she put me in contact with her husband, who was a bit more of a senior attorney, has a network. He's a commercial bankruptcy lawyer. He knew all the commercial bankruptcy lawyers around the country at all the best firms. He introduced me to some of the biggest names and the biggest firms. They were all like very, very nice. God bless them. They all spent the time to have lunch with me and chat with me, but I didn't fit in the big firm model anymore because I didn't go through on campus interviews. I was a weirdo. I was you've got the scores and the grades, but we didn't test you and we've got a class and you're not in that.
yeah.
But luckily, I just didn't fit. But one of those contacts ran a boutique commercial bankruptcy firm in the heart of downtown Seattle, was known nationally, just one of these boutique experts. And he was kind enough to take a chance on me and cue the ABBA music. It was set my whole path. The people I met there in this tiny little firm set me on a path to the other contacts and the work I did and the connections into Microsoft that did not come from my husband at all. We're in different worlds. He's a techie. It's like two different universes.
Yeah.
Everything though was a result of this one kind mentor, a woman not too much older than me, who changed my career trajectory. So that is, people talk about networking. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what it means. I know authentic relationships, and they go in both ways, and they pay forward and they pay backward, and that changed my career completely.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to send her a little thank you note and a link to this whenever it gets published. So she'll be like, oh, that's so cool. Okay, so you started working in the bankruptcy firm.
Yeah.
So have you taken the bar down in Texas before you got to?
I did. That's what I was studying for when the husband was off traveling to Seattle. I was like, what? Seattle? Where? Isn't it rainy there? I mean, no clue. Never been here. So I took the Texas bar, and then got this job, and then had to take the Washington bar, which, another funny story. Our biggest earthquake in the last 20 years happened on the day of my bar exam. So I'm taking the bar. There's an earthquake, and I'm like, where did we move?
Yeah.
What is happening? This is real. I took the Washington bar, survived the earthquake and the bar.
Survived the earthquake. That's like, okay, which is worse, the earthquake or the bar? I don't know. I would probably take the earthquake.
When I tell these stories, I'm like, wow, I really should kind of like, when I retire, I need to write a little funny comedy about this life's little adventures.
Well, you've read
so I did. I did. That's right. Bucket list check. That's done. So I started at this firm and took the Washington bar, and guess what I was doing? I was in court and I was writing pleadings and I was arguing motions, and that is not what I wanted to do when I went to law school. But I was in a great place with great people who taught me things, and I loved it accidentally.
Yeah. And you were probably like paying down that law school loan just a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes you got to do that.
You gotta pay the bills. And I was just so lucky that I landed in a place that was nurturing and warm and stimulating intellectually, and nothing like what I thought I'd be doing at the time, nothing that I was planning on doing at that time 6 months ago. And suddenly it all changed. And I was lucky and grateful for the connections that got me to this little firm.
Do you think you would have been happier in big law?
No. After that, I did spend a little bit of time at a big firm in the Seattle area, Davis Wright Tremaine, a great firm. Again, thanks to one of my colleagues at the small firm, and was a mentor of mine, and he moved on and took me with him shortly thereafter. I was like, amazing. Again, it's all that those authentic relationships. And then after a couple of years at the big firm, Microsoft became an opportunity. Also, again, similar, same colleague that was also like, hey, it's nice here. And I'm like, I bet it is. So, opened a few doors, and I made my way in through those doors, and I don't think I was in for the long haul at a big firm. Everything about what I've written in my first book and what I practice and I preach today is unfortunately a little bit contrary in philosophy to the core business model of big law.
Mhm.
It's not conducive to what I want to do and how I want to practice and how I want to deliver value to clients.
So I guess you learned a lot about that dichotomy after going in-house and being in-house, right? So did you kind of have visions or dream of going in-house, or was it just awesome that like the opportunity at Microsoft appeared and you're like, oh, heck yeah, let's do this?
It's a really good question. I mean, I will say, I didn't know the huge difference between in-house lawyering and big law lawyering,
Yeah.
until I was in those positions. But I will say, the first weekend in Seattle, looking around the big buildings in downtown and going, wow, I want to make it to those, which I did with even with the little firm. But then that next step was, I remember having that conversation even with my husband, like, wow, I bet Microsoft has a neat, legal department. I didn't know really what it was
Yeah.
until I started seeing them as a client,
Mhm.
until they became one of my clients, one of the firm's clients, and I got to kind of see what it's like. So it's interesting. I can't say it was a mission from the beginning, but it became very clear that it was a good path if I could forge it. And
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the transition. The transition
yeah,
over to Microsoft. Was your husband still there when you transitioned over?
he was.
Okay.
But a company of 100,000 people, like we were like different universes.
Different, yeah,
We
totally
really were
differences,
different schedule, different time. Everything was different. So it was almost like we were different companies. So
yeah.
we did overlap. I'm trying to think how much we overlapped by a couple of years,
Sure.
just a
Okay.
couple of years. And then again, then he chose to be a stay-home dad. And I was like, well, good, I'm here. I'm solid. Thank you.
Let's take a quick pause for a message from my sponsor, Prominent Practice.
Are you thinking about a career transition from big law or partnership to a solo practice, selling your practice, or maybe you're launching a project unrelated to law? Whatever the reason for your transition, you'll need support along the way. Enter Prominent Practice, an executive consulting and marketing firm specializing in branding, positioning, and reputation management for transitioning attorneys. Founded by a female entrepreneur who spent a decade building smart digital platforms for thought leaders before pivoting to focus on high-end service providers who were preparing for successions, mergers, and acquisition events in their businesses. If you're thinking about making a big business move, don't risk losing the ability to leverage the reputation you've spent your career building. Let Prominent Practice be your guide. Visit prominentpractice.com/blissed for an exclusive introduction.
So I'm curious about the dynamic there because
Yeah, common.
it's not common or traditional. And it's something I think is unique and people need to talk about it. So you decided that you're going to have children. You're like, let's make some babies up in here, right? So we're going to do this. We're going to have a family. Did you all kind of decide as a
Yeah,
couple again that you were gonna that
I
he
love this topic.
yeah.
So I love this topic. There's a ton to unpack here.
Sure.
Actually, the first book I started writing, which is now 10 years in the making, is this concept of the whole work life mom professional balance. I think, God, this is like the biggest soapbox. You should be careful,
Get on it.
letting me get
Step
on
right
a
up and-
soapbox. I think it's such a freaking cluster for women. It is so wrong. And there's so many different angles of wrong. So of course there is the um, policies and the fact that in our country we don't get benefits and leave to take care of newborn babies and of ourselves after having babies. Like that is offensive, crazy, and ridiculous in this country. That's one. Next slice of crazy is, of course, in general, the medical healthcare system broken, crazy. That's breaking moms, all that as well. Okay,
Mhm.
all that's crazy. if you're going to tackle one thing, that's not what I'm going to tackle. Here's my God, I don't even know where to start. This is such a big topic. Yeah, we decided to have babies, of course. And by the time we did, it was like, hey, we got to do this thing because TikTok goes the clock. I was born with all the parts, but that wasn't like my life's dream, with all respect to everything. Like, I was like, no, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to knock this out of the park. I'm going to use my brain. I love using my brain. But of course, I want a family. And
it's very natural to want that.
It's like, yeah, well, hey, let me say it this way. I want it all. Yep, I want it all. I want to be good at all of it. I don't want to be perfect at any of it, but I want to be good at it, all of it. I don't want to have to do one or the other and make all these choices. So, yeah, we decided to have kids from the very beginning. And this is, let's say, if I'm going to pick the really hottest push button topic, pick your partners well, ladies. Pick your partners well. Way too many smart, capable, intelligent, brilliant women end up falling off the grid, off their professional career track, not purely by their choice. I see it all the time. They meet in college, it's great. And they in law school together, look at them, they're both their study partner. Oh, look at that couple, they're a little power couple, look at them go. And they get married and they get their big jobs. And then it's after marriage. It's not when you get married. Nobody expects a housewife when they get married anymore. But once the babies come along, I don't know what happens, but he starts to drag his knuckles on the ground and like goes back 700 years of evolution. And she's like, oh, well, that's happening. So I better counter it. I got overfunction. I have to do everything because he's not. And somehow that's okay. And I don't know. I can't explain it. It is a phenomenon I see over and over again. Mutually respectful, capable, intelligent peers, partners in everything until babies come along. And then I start hearing things like, I got to see if my husband can babysit.
I've heard this.
What?
I've heard men say this, Lucy, where they'll say, I need to go. This is my baby.
I got to babysit. My wife needs me to babysit. I'm going to babysit. So to me, this core all comes back to the women. You can't, the minute you hear that, you got to nip that in the bud. That is not okay. That is an indicator of problems. This isn't about taxonomy. This isn't because they use the wrong word. This is an indicator of a core fundamental problem. I see it all the time. I see amazing, capable women that are like, well, I need to. They're over functioning, they're over indexing, they're over correcting because suddenly their partner has stepped back from this. They've just kind of quiet quit the job of co-parenting. And now it's all on the mom, the woman, the working mom. I don't care what we call ourselves. So no, I'm not in a traditional position. Yes, it's easy for me to talk from this position because I have the husband who stays home. And I've heard that too. Believe me, I get it from all angles, right? I get the passive aggressive. Well, not everybody. Well, good for you, Lucy. We don't all have, well, you could have it. So you make your choices for you. This is a joint decision between two equal peers. Just because you were given the body parts doesn't somehow make you now you have to. Nope. There's science. There are things you can share almost everything equally. I mean, come on, we don't need a biology lesson. I know what you can't share, but I know what you can share. And it makes me crazy. Susie, I'm sorry. It makes me crazy. And I see it on my team. I see amazing women who have wonderful husbands. And I see the amount of work that they do. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And I gotta just because I love all these people and I want them to be successful and I want them to be happy. But sometimes I feel like, God, I gotta say the ugly truth here is that women aren't doing themselves any favors by solving everything, fixing everything, paving every path, making everything easier, and just taking care of everything because it just enables. It enables.
So what? Okay, so a few things like, so do we? No. This is awesome. Okay, so I have questions. So do we need to push back on that and ask for what we want? Do we need to pick our partners well, as in be more proactive at the early stages of mate finding
Look, it's not a checklist or an interview thing. It is setting very clear expectation. I mean, it's just, it's from that first indicator.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're too tired to get up in the middle of the night? Stop. Answer that question. I'm sorry. What do you mean? And I see it. And so again, it's this tiny little slippery slope. Tiny little. Well, I mean, he wouldn't know anyway, so I just better do. I'll just do it.
I can just handle it. Yeah, I
No.
do think I think you need to do write something like a LinkedIn article or something on quiet quitting co-parenting. I mean, it's not a couple, but I think that would be something very fascinating to kind of dig into to see what is going on here.
I might. I mean, this is kind of like my next big if I had the bandwidth and the time to not running a business. But it is that's a passion project. I mean, following the kind of work that like Melinda Gates does, right? I'm watching her going, wow, she's really reached to the core, the challenge of women getting ahead, and that's controlling their own reproductive cycle. Controlling that. This is no different. Yes, we're blessed to live in the country we live in and have the resources we have. So yes, we can control the reproductive cycle, but for some reason we let go of that control of our destiny. A lot of women do. And then they're frustrated. Look, people who choose whatever path they choose, amen. I don't care about that. Go, good, great. That is none of my interest or concern or business. What I'm watching, women who didn't fully choose it. It was kind of a choice. Somebody that was made, they made, but they're frustrated. They're feeling unfulfilled. They feel that there's an unfairness. They're getting resentful of their spouses. They love their spouses, right? They love the family unit they've built, but there's a resentment. There's a frustration. It has to be enough to make them do something about it, right? And again, can't change people who don't want to be changed. So I'm not here to change people. I'm just here to say those who aren't happy, you can do something about this, and it's never too late. It is never too late. It's no different than my smart teenage kid was like, oh, I'm not very good at loading the dishwasher. What? How did we get to this? That's no. Oh, we're gonna get you good at loading the dishwasher, right? And I think it's a brilliant tactic. It's been around as long as humans have been around. You set the expectation bar pretty low, and people stop expecting stuff of you. And I think that's just what's happened with co-parenting. Somehow, dads get to opt out, and as a society, we've allowed it, obviously. But too many women are allowing it at that micro level, like in their marriage, in their family unit, in their home. And guess what? Their kids are seeing this.
100%. Yeah.
Right? This isn't about people being unhappy or unhealthy. They're happy. Life is good, right? Everybody's got everything. But is the woman, mom, wife, whatever, is she really fulfilled? Is she really happy? And those are the ones that just kills me. I see it and I'm like, why did it get to this point? But I don't know if that was the point of this podcast, but this is a hot button for me. And I'm going to just say it, and we're not going to edit any of this because it is what it is.
We're not going to edit it. And the, I did want to kind of get into this because I knew that it was a hot button topic for you. And it's something that you're passionate about, and you're out there, you're in the world, and you're seeing these women and the things that they're experiencing. And they probably really look up to you, right? As someone who has what seems to be an extremely supportive partner. So, okay. So I want to ask you just like a couple practical tips, like when we are choosing our partners as young females, young female lawyers specifically, are there any red flags or that we can look out for?
So look, I will say for that partner, right? Again, in my case, it's a husband, and I don't know if it's a man-woman thing. I don't know. I can only talk from my experience, right? Believe me, he's got to deal with his own nonsense out in the world, right? Sure. Again, the bullshit comments from the other dads. Oh, you're so lucky you get to spend time with your kids. Wow. Really? You're the same dad that your wife has to map out, freeze meals because she's going to be away for 2 whopping days, right? And set for you a calendar and a schedule and get other moms to help you drive your kids. Like, really? Am I that lucky? So he would hear a lot of bullshit too, and you have to let that roll off your back, right? So it isn't easy in either direction. And oftentimes I have more in common with men, right, if we're in a social gathering, than with women if they are mostly stay-home moms, which again, they're happy, that's fine. But when we're having conversation, I don't always have something to contribute that says, I don't know. I mean, I can, but then I get frustrated and I get kind of, especially when I start hearing the complaining. I think that's the thing that really gets me, is like the women who love to complain about their husbands not doing their share. And I want to say, then make them is the thing. So yeah, the indicators are there. They are red flags. I mean, I would say there's machismo commentary that happens in a haha joking manner. That's not funny. Nothing about that is funny. So if you see that in your early mid-20s, there's something underneath there that told him that that's okay. Or, you know why jokes are funny? Because there's a little bit of truth to them. That's why jokes are funny. Really good jokes are funny because they are calling out a truth to some extent. We don't like to admit that. That's reality. So I would say look for the little jokes, the little machismo, macho, when the guys are all together. Haha. You see it there. The indicators are there. References to other people and other roles they have and women and how they see that. Little tiny assumptions. Well, yeah, but when we have kids, I mean, what? Finish that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you really want to pull on those strings and threads. I will say I've also seen some really good success stories where there is some of that, and then the wife, is very intentional on redirecting it. That's good. Hey, that may be the way you grew up. That may be what you saw in your house. That's not what I want. Like I have seen that too, and it's tough. And if they have, this isn't about truly loving each other. Of course, if they love each other, they want the best for each other. But this is about respect, right? Care. This is true. I want you to be happy. I want the other person to be happy, and that means you got to ebb and flow. So yeah, there are red flags. I think those are the biggest ones. How they refer to other stay-home dads, if and when they ever run across them. Is it like they're looking at them like they're in a museum? Like, what is that creature, right? Well, that's okay. They chose that. Now, I will say, this isn't always 100% choice for anybody, because oftentimes you do want it all and you just physically can't make it all work, because either the career one is just not bringing in enough income to support this, or the lifestyle you want requires. So none of this is black and white. This is about being empowered and enabled, that if you have the resources and you have the means and the wherewithal, you can make a change that's benefit for you. And you know what? You deserve to be happy. Every working mom deserves to be happy in what path she's chosen and not feel a steady state of resentment, not feel a steady state of lack of appreciation or just burnout. Constant state of burnout is what we've been learning to embrace. Like, that's what it is, that's what we do. We do it all. That, we don't have to be that way. Life's way too short. So we got to kind of own up to it and tweak it and make it our own and find that balance and happiness, because I don't know, it's just not, something's off. And COVID was another reminder. We saw that during COVID. The moms are doing it all.
Yeah.
The dads next door quietly in their room doing their Zoom calls, and the mom's doing the balance. What? How did that happen? So that was a big indicator.
That's when I really noticed some weird stuff was going on, right? Like the quiet quitting of co-parenting. And of course I didn't have it. I wasn't calling it that, but I
call it that? Should we do something? We're going to do something with this. We're going to call it something. Quiet quitting of co-parenting. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. I saw that from a lot of my female colleagues, and it was like, I haven't been out like in the corporate world for 10 years. I've had my own practice and I've lived in a small town. And so I haven't really been in the trenches, so to speak. But when, in 2020, the people that I talked to and my friends who practiced, I was like, wait, where's Bill? Like, why is he the one that gets the home office for the conference call?
Quiet.
Yeah, like, why are you like helping with homework all day long because the kids can't go to school? Like, it was always the women who were taking on the childcare responsibilities. And
That's
I don't know,
right.
it's just very fascinating to me. It just really, it was very
That's the facts. That's the data.
Yeah.
This isn't an opinion. This is your data in your small controlled environment and group. You're like, wow, every time it's always you. And on the one time it isn't, it's like the woman probably went out of her way to like, okay, I really need on this one call to have quiet. Can you watch the kids for an hour? Like you're asking a favor.
Yeah.
That's a shitty feeling, pardon my French. That is crap to feel like you have to ask for a favor
From your
of
partner.
your life partner. Your life, you together created this new other life, and now it's just the dynamics of that's not healthy. It's not a favor. It is not a favor to watch your own kids, and it is not babysitting, right? It isn't, it's not. It is careful negotiation. It is careful planning. It is divide and conquer. Those are all normal, healthy things. Not a favor. It frustrates me. I mean,
It's frustrating. And I think that women need to really think about just asking themselves the simple question. And it's a simple question, but the answer is complex. And the question is, what am I unnecessarily tolerating right now? Right? Because that question really will get to the root of what is going on, I think, within the relationship, or maybe the lack of co-parenting that's going on. And once you can kind of figure out what it really is, it's kind of grinding you, then you can figure out, well, do I need to set boundaries here? Can I actually ask for what I want and need in this relationship? And if it's not possible to do that, then I mean, I think that person really needs to have a serious reevaluation of the relationship, which is scary.
No, that's probably right. That's very scary. That's probably right. And I'm absolutely no relationship expert. If anything, the only thing I'm an expert in is working mom, tips and tricks. I could say, yes, I've done it. And the only way I have a little bit of confidence in this is that I have a lot of women asking me, how can you do it?
I bet you do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to take it for granted. But I would have like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So to me, I'm lucky. I'm grateful. It was never a fight. It was never a thing. If anything, I was almost on the reverse from like, wow, I didn't realize how good I had it. I'd be poking my husband. I'm like, so what are you going to do? When are you going to figure out what is your career plan? And I was like, wow, what is wrong with me? I can't have it all both ways. Like, I mean, that's so
Yeah.
It isn't easy. There is no easy answer here.
No.
My only message and mission here is really for the women to achieve their success, their growth, their personal happiness. It doesn't have to come at their cost. That's what's unfair, right? So go for what you want. You want to stay home? Amen. God bless. You want to stay home for 10 years and come back? Fantastic. I'm specifically talking to the women who aren't happy. They're frustrated, and that frustration grows and their resentment grows. Time's not going to help. This is not something that time heals. This time makes it worse and worse and worse. And it's embedded and it's ingrained. And you've now set the precedent, not to be a lawyer about it, but you have. And with every time you set that precedent, it just becomes real, just becomes fact. There's no questioning it. Right. So it's those are the women, right? It's those where I'm like, God, you're not happy. You're
not happy. And when you're not happy, you're not living to your potential, right?
Oh, absolutely. 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 You got to be happy. You got to be content. You got to feel fulfilled. Mm-hmm. You want to feel accomplished. We all do. Mm-hmm. And if again, I'm talking specifically to those women who have career goals and visions. This is not for those who don't. That's great. There's too many who have amazing visions and capabilities and aptitude and desires and dreams and goals. And yet it's just all like there's something always ahead of it. There's something in front of it. There's something that jumps in front. And that's what I can't tolerate that. I can't tolerate it. If it's changeable, this is the stuff that's within your control. So I am talking to a subset, and I know that. And I know enough women who are going to be like, wow, I get it. Ladies, you gotta do you. You gotta do you. But those who aren't able to do you, that's the killer.
Yeah.
There's a different you. There's like a different you inside, and it can't come out because they're too busy coordinating action items for the school program or summer camp, or I don't know. Look, I'd still do too. That, to be clear.
Yeah.
I don't step out of that part. It is called co-parenting for a reason. I
Right.
still design the whole calendar. I get to hand off the execution, for
I
example.
bet you do design the calendar.
Right? I do. That's the thing. You still have to do what you're good at. You have to do what you're best suited for.
Yeah.
So this again, there's no black and white map. There's just that if you're not happy, you're not getting what you want, you got to do something about it.
And until you evolve.
Yes, everything evolves, everything changes. But yeah, the indicators, and go on about this topic. And I don't know if there's no magic answer, but we just have to help each other, kind of prop each other up and go, you can say no.
We do. We have to prop each other up. We have to be cheerleaders for each other. We have to be each other's mentors, if that's what we wanted. I mean, you don't have to, but you know, if you have that in you, then mentor a younger female lawyer, right? To kind of help guide them. And they don't even have to be in your firm. And if anything, or company, if anything, it would be better to mentor someone who's not, in my opinion.
I agree. I think so. It's a little bit less personal. And by the way, for young women to have, kids, to have it all and be in a big firm and be successful as they define success in a big firm, super hard. No, that nut has not been cracked. Guess when I left the big firm? I was pregnant with my first.
Yeah.
Actually got the offer to join Microsoft. I was in the hospital having my first baby. Within that 48-hour period or whatever, there was a voicemail. Microsoft made me the offer. So to their credit, they interviewed me when I was enormous, literally 8 months pregnant, interviewed and received an offer, because the firm, the life, everything. And again, this is before I had a stay-home husband, but we had the nanny, we had the plan of the two working parents. But excelling and thriving inside a big firm and having kids is still super hard.
So hard. Lucy, this has been such an incredible conversation. I think I could go on another hour with you. And I think kind of my take home here, is I think part of the thing here is creating the awareness of your situation, right? Because sometimes I think we get very bogged down. We don't understand that, or we don't realize that there's quiet quitting going on in a relationship until it just boom, because it's like scope creep in a contract or in a working relationship, right? It's just it's like a slow boil. You don't realize it until you're ready to explode. So it's like being aware of the situation. Of course, picking your partner well, right? And looking for those red flags, I think is huge. And, let me ask you, I know that's kind of your big piece of advice, but if you could give I usually say, ask if you could give a nugget for someone right out of law school, but I'm more curious about if you could give a nugget of advice to a newly married couple, specifically the female in the relationship who wants to have a family one day, what would you say to her? Do you have any little? Yeah,
trust your instinct. When you hear something that doesn't feel a little bit, just talk about it. Just get it out there. This isn't about causing a big fight. This isn't a big argument. This isn't, oh my God, I've made the wrong choice. This is really initializing that ability to redirect some bad behaviors, bad choices, or unconducive ones. Good or bad is a judgment, but they're not conducive to your plan. Just trust your instinct. That didn't sound right. I wonder what he meant when he said that. I hope when we have kids, he won't. And I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope by the time we have kids, he won't, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. Magic doesn't happen. People don't just magically transform, especially into the more work department. They're not going to just transform into I'd like to do these crappy middle of the night wake ups. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. No, it's the opposite. So please just trust your instinct and have that conversation. It is 2023. You're probably in, if not the US, you're probably in a modern civilized culture somewhere that You have every right to ask these questions, even if it's just a thought, a little glimpse. Please trust it. Please trust it. It is 99% guarantee that it is a true indicator of something you're going to have to deal with later. That's hard. This stuff gets hard, right? Life's hard enough, work's hard enough, all that.
Yeah.
Once you bring in kids, it just changes everything.
And it's a lot better to address it sooner rather than later, or
Absolutely.
be in a relationship and married and
from the get-go.
From the get-go, yeah. So Lucy, thank you so much for hanging out with me and just sharing your wisdom. This has been such an insightful conversation. I've loved every second of it. Where can people find you on the internet?
Sure. So first, thank you. And I always have to apologize after every time I get on a soapbox. I literally can't help myself.
I
make
love
fun
your,
of use of the
no,
word
I love your
literally, but I feel like
it shows your passion. It shows your passion for something. I think that's awesome.
I can't help it. I'm always happy to have any conversation with any women in law, career change, how to do it all, blah, 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 all that bucket of topics. Anytime, connect with me on LinkedIn, of course. I'm running a fun business where, we're not all women. I didn't have to think about that. I know we're not, but we have a core team, our working professional moms. I don't even know what to call us. We're all women. We're all professionals. We all have kids. I don't know what you want to call it. We're all trying to figure out ways to do it and balance right and do good work and have happy families. So, I love that part as well. And I'm always happy to share kind of how we manage to do it. A lot of it comes down to creating the job for yourself that works for you and being in charge of your own destiny, and always happy to share. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. Find me there, and I'm always happy to connect. Always.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you for the time and the platform, and what did we call it? Quiet quitting of co-parenting. No more. We're gonna write an article, and
I am ready to talk about this more.
Viral. We're gonna do it. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Legally Blissed Conversations. If you love this episode and you want to hang out with other inspiring and light gold female attorneys, be sure to join the Legally Blissed community at legallyblissed.com. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Susie Hickson. See you next time.